Hey guys, Drifter here, and welcome to Battlefield 3 In Depth. In today's episode, you're going to notice that I actually have PC gameplay for you. I've changed all the settings on my PC, so now when I play online, I play 720p medium settings, 30 FPS on PC, which isn't necessarily the best for PC gaming, but it is very easy to record that way, and then thus edit the videos like perfect 1-to-1 quality ratio. And you're going to have to forgive some of the PC scrubbery here. I've been playing on console for months and months and months, like 4, 5, 6 months. This was my first game back to PC. Very, very difficult. Also playing with two other commentators, Epwna and DCRU Colin. You'll see those guys show up in a little bit, but let's talk about today's episode of Battlefield 3 In Depth, and that's suppressors. I'm going to be talking all about the suppressors today, and without further ado, let's get started. The first thing you need to know about the suppressor is that, like the flash suppressor, it completely removes all muzzle flash. That removes the muzzle flash for you and for your enemies, so it's easier when you aim down sights. There's no flash, no annoying brightness, and it's harder for your enemies to spot you. I talked about this more in detail in the flash suppressor episode, so you're welcome to check that out, but there's no muzzle flash. It also almost completely removes sound. Your weapon still does make some noise when shoots. Obviously, when somebody's really close to you and they're shooting at you with a suppressor, you can still hear it. You can still hear your own suppressor shots, but even at medium range, you really can't hear it because Battlefield is really good about their logarithmic sounds in this game. So when somebody's at medium range, chances are the flash suppressor is barely going to be making any noise at all, and the noise of the bullets impacting the concrete around them is going to be much louder than the sound of you shooting, which is going to give you a major stealth advantage. While the qualitative benefits of being very hard to see and very hard to hear are absolutely wonderful, the biggest and best benefit of the silencer is that it keeps you off the radar when firing. And I guess maybe I should say minimap, that's the old Call of Duty coming back in me, but just like Call of Duty and most modern shooters, when you fire a weapon that doesn't have a silencer, you show up on the minimap down there in the bottom left. When you fire your weapon that has a silencer on it, you will not show up on the minimap. Now, it's not like a stealth perk or proficiency or anything. You can still be spotted, you can still be tagged by any sort of MAV or motion detector or anything like that, but you don't automatically show up as soon as you fire, so your position is concealed until somebody actually sees you and taps that Q key or back button or select button to tag you. Now let's move on to what you all really came here to learn about, and that's the numerical effects on the weapon. The flash suppressor reduces vertical recoil on any weapon by approximately 10%. Now it varies a little bit from weapon to weapon, but 10% is a very good offhand figure. This is not going to be as significant as what the flash suppressor will do, and to be honest, most of you may not notice 10%, but numerically it's there, it's statistically significant, and it will improve your overall recoil pattern. The suppressor's other beneficial effect is that it increases aim down sight accuracy by 25%. And I know that sounds confusing because most of you think that when you aim down sights, your bullets are going to go wherever you aim the crosshairs. In Call of Duty, that's true. In Quake, that's true. In Counter-Strike, that's true. You don't really have scopes there. But anyway, Battlefield doesn't really work this way. Battlefield is set up where you always have crosshairs. Even when you're aiming down sights, you have crosshairs and a hipfire spread box, sort of, except it just turns invisible and it gets very, very small to where you can't see it. They programmed this into the game to give you a nice illusion of the effect that there are micro movements within guns that you can't really compensate with a Call of Duty style hit scan engine or a Counter-Strike style engine. Now when you combine this with the 10% reduction in vertical recoil, it does make your weapon significantly more accurate. I'm going to show you a hit chart from Simthic.com. I talked to the guys at Simthic. They gave me permission to use this as long as I reference their website. This is the AEK 971 without a suppressor. And then this is the AEK 971's recoil with a suppressor. And when we overlay them, you can see the difference between the two. Now, it's not the most significant difference, but I still think it's important, and in my head, anything that makes my gun more accurate, I'm happy with. Now let's talk about the negative effects of silencers, because for every good effect, there is also a negative effect. The first one that you're going to notice as soon as you slap it on is that your hipfire radius is going to increase by about 50%. Some weapons it's 40%, some might be 35%, some might be 60%, but generally speaking, it's going to increase by 50%. Now, this doesn't sound like it's too good, but it's like, 50% increase in radius, that's not so bad, but you have to bear in mind that a radius increases the area of a circle in a squared fashion, because it's pi r squared, it's not a linear function. Therefore, you have to multiply that 50% by another 50%, or 1.5 times 1.5, which is 2.25, and that means that you have more than doubled your hipfire spread area. So the area of your hipfire spread is now more than twice as inaccurate, or only half as accurate as it was before, which is very, very bad. So please do keep that in mind, that your hipfire is going to be absolute garbage when you're running a silencer. The other negative effect of suppressors, which I'm sure all of you know about, is that the damage drop decreases, but it decreases by 40%. Now, of course, this varies from weapon to weapon, 35, 50%, etc., but generally speaking, they're all going to decrease about 40%. One good exception is that the PDWs only lose about 20% of their range. Some of them lose as little as 14, but most PDWs lose about 20% of their range, and this is the beginning of your damage drop-off. It changes the whole damage drop-off curve. I got this chart from Synthic.com. Again, man, these guys are really useful. You can see that the orange line is an AEK 971 that has a suppressor, and that the green line there, or greenish line, I'm kind of colorblind, so you're going to have to tell me on this one, is a normal AEK 71 with no attachments. And as you can see, the one with no attachments maintains damage over range much better than the one with a suppressor. So please do bear in mind that you're going to be dealing less damage over range. The last negative effect of the suppressor is one that not many of you probably know about, is that your muzzle velocity drops by between 50 and 60%, kind of depending on your weapon. And the muzzle velocity is the speed at which your bullets travel. Once again, I'm referencing Call of Duty because I know we have so many Call of Duty players and so many new Battlefielders listening in right now. Battlefield, in Battlefield, every single bullet is a projectile. It has its own weight, its own mass, its own travel speed, and all that. It's like you're lobbing very fast rockets back and forth, kind of like an Unreal style game. So your muzzle velocity decreases. That means your bullets travel half as fast. This means you're going to have to lead targets at a distance more. It also means that you're going to have to aim up above their heads more, because your bullets are going to drop faster because they travel slower. This is going to make it incredibly difficult to hit targets at a range. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you that suppressors are a very mixed bag. They have some excellent accuracy increasing benefits, like the vertical recoil and the ADS accuracy increase. They keep you off the radar, they reduce your muzzle flash and your noise, but they also have some very bad side effects, like making your hip fire terrible, making your muzzle velocity bad so it's harder to shoot at range, and decreasing your weapon's damage. I would tell you to use silencers on PDWs, because PDWs aren't affected by this as much. They're all very close range weapons anyway, and numerically they're not affected as much, which is very cool. Silencers also don't get to light machine guns quite as bad. On assault rifles or the engineering carbine style weapons, I go with ones that have complete shit accuracy, like the AEK 971. Great gun, high fire rate, fucking awful accuracy. I would never use it at a range anyway, so generally speaking, I'm just going to slap a silencer on it and be sneaky and rush people and not worried about showing up on the radar as much. Well, that's all for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something useful. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about the new post-patch grip. Drifter out.